Today's video is further coverage of the Dylan Rounds missing persons case. I have some interesting information that I wanted to share with all of you. I found this information when I was revisiting some of the earlier court documents that I covered in older videos. Right now, there is a person of interest that is not in jail that was specifically named in a police officer's statement. That person's name is Don Haley. I do recall the officer's statement and reading it in a prior video, but for some reason back then I wasn't quite connecting all of the dots. The police report also gave a generalized area for Don Haley's home. Recently, while I was watching a mob crew video about the last ping that came from Dylan's phone, I had an idea. I can piggyback off of mob crew's last ping map, and I can add Don Haley's address, Lucin Pond, and the grain shed, just to give you guys a visual of the things that I was seeing. I'm going to walk you through my steps of realization that I had leading up to the new phone ping map that I created. Also, if you followed a lot of other creators covering Dylan's case, I'm sure you've heard of Lucin Pond. I'm including a small clip from Earthworm Infertainment's search video of the pond so that you guys can see what Lucin Pond looks like. The last ping was also near this pond, and it was kind of cool to see it instead of hearing it described without a visual. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the full document. The wording's kind of small in this, so I just want to show you guys the full document. And then there's the second paragraph, and that is where I'm going to zoom in and show you guys a bigger version. And I'm going to read it. On June 20th, 2022, while out at Joe Cecchio's property, located in Lucin, Utah, I, along with other law enforcement agents, interviewed a person of interest. During this interview, this individual stated that after Box Elder's initial interview with our suspect, James Brenner, he came over to his home and asked if he would hold several firearms for him. When our person of interest asked James why he needed to hold on to the firearms, James stated for his own safety, and also so that he could hold on to the items in the future. Due to past experiences with law enforcement, they take everything, so he wanted to hold on to what possessions he did have. Our person of interest told James that he would hold on to them for him for time being. When we asked our person of interest if he still had these firearms, he stated that he did. Our person of interest also stated that James was a felon and should not be in possession of any firearms anyways. A phone call was made to verify if James was in fact a restricted person, and it came back that James is a convicted felon and has multiple firearm-related charges, including possession by a restricted person, unlawful transport of firearms, use of antique firearms in a crime, and assault with intent to murder, and a malicious shooting. We asked our person of interest if we could see the firearms in his home, and he told us to come over. So we went to 7000 South Pilot Mountain Road and went inside of our person of interest's home, and he showed us exactly where the 3 firearms were located. We documented the firearms and then ran them through NCIC, and they all came back negative to anything stolen. Those 3 firearms were then taken as evidence, and we cleared from the residence and went back to James' residence, where on a previous occasion a search warrant was issued. During that warrant, gunpowder, ammunition, and blasting caps were found in James' home. And with this new information that James was in possession of 3 firearms, we decided to write another warrant for the residence to go in and collect the items that were left behind. So a couple of things stand out to me. One thing that stands out to me is that person of interest and James are 2 distinct things. Obviously, it doesn't say Don Haley's name on this document, but I'm going to show you another document that when put together, you can tell that it's talking about Don Haley. The other thing that I wanted to point out is the 7000 South Pilot Mountain Road. I want to let you guys know I'm not putting Don's actual address on blast. I'll show you another thing later that is from Box Elder County's GIS mapping. And 7,000 South is actually a block, I guess you would call it. In the city, it would be like, let's say, for example, 40th block or 50th block. So that's like the street or the area. Well, this block is basically just like a large area on the map. This next document I'm going to show you guys. This is from the document where James Brenner was named an official suspect, and I believe it actually says it in this. The defendant was squatting on property belonging to SH and RI that is adjacent to DR, Dylan Rounds. DR was reported missing on May 30th, 2022, and his whereabouts are unknown. The defendant is known to have had contact with DR and is a suspect in DR's disappearance. A search warrant was executed on the defendant's trailer, revealing black powder firearms equipment. DH, Don Haley, was interviewed by the FBI and admitted that the defendant asked him to hold black powder firearms in a .22 caliber Winchester rifle. The defendant hand-delivered the rifles to DH and asked him to hold them for him. This next thing is just kind of like clarifying what a person of interest is. Obviously, he's not a suspect, but he's a person of interest. And this is from a law firm. It's called Bobby Barina Law. What does a person of interest mean? This term is widely used to describe a person who may have been involved in a crime and who the police are interested in finding out more about. However, if they don't have enough evidence to call them a suspect, they are not able to take action. Difference between a suspect and a person of interest. What is a suspect? A suspect is a person who the prosecutor believes committed a particular crime or crimes, and they have reasonable grounds based on evidence to make this accusation. Though the person is considered a suspect, they may not have been formally accused. As not all investigations are criminal investigations, there may be some cases where there are no suspects, but law enforcement officers still require information from relevant people. Person of interest is significant. It's not exactly a suspect, but he is a person that officers are clearly interested in. Don Haley, that is. This next document, or it's not a document, it's a map. I'm going to try to zoom in on it. So do you see kind of in the top left corner where it says 7,000 South? And then if you look down at the bottom left corner, it says 79,700 West. So that's also a block area. But this 7,000 South is the general area where Don Haley lives. And then I thought like this text would be like clear. I wrote Lucin Pond here and then general area 7,000 Pilot Mountain Road. And then down near the bottom of the map, it says last ping. And then to the right bottom, it says Dylan's grain shed. It's not very clear. I thought it would be bigger than it actually came out to be. This next is the visual that I created. It's actually a video, and I'll play it for you guys and kind of explain what you're seeing. So this is the grain shed, clearly. I labeled it. This is the last place where Dylan potentially made the phone call to his grandmother. James Brenner's trailer was probably about 50 to 100 feet from the grain shed. This is just like a 360-degree 3D view of the grain shed area. It's kind of interesting to see it up close. The next spot that we'll be going to is where Dylan's phone last pinged, which, if I recall correctly from the mob crew video, I'll link the video below, but it's near a wash. And a wash is kind of just a place where water runs through, as I understand it. Oh, I also measured the distance from the grain shed to the ping in miles. So it's about almost 1.5 miles. I've also heard Lucin Pond mentioned quite often. There's a little bit of confusion surrounding it, but I do recall somebody related to the case saying something about Dylan's phone pinging near the pond with James' phone. I don't know whether or not that's true. It's just something that was said. So that's why I felt like Lucin Pond would be kind of an important thing to explore. Lucin Pond, like this imagery, it's not, you can't really see the water. So it kind of just looks like a green patch. But the video that I'm going to show you guys will, the little snippet from Lance and Ty's Lucin Pond search, it'll kind of give you guys more of a clear understanding of what it looks like. So basically, even though you can't tell from this view, there are a bunch of trees that are covering it. So it has like foliage over it, which is why the water's not very clear from this map that I've created. And then I'm measuring the distance from Lucin Pond to the area where Don Haley lives. That is almost 2 miles, 1.93 miles. And it just seems interesting to me that it's kind of headed in the general direction towards Don Haley's. It doesn't necessarily mean that it made it to Don Haley's or that Don Haley was actually involved. It's just interesting and just something that I wanted to point out to you guys. Now I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to play a snippet from Lance and Ty's Lucin Pond video. I did get permission to play this video, by the way. So you guys kind of see how it's surrounded by trees. It's kind of covered by trees and it's kind of difficult to see the water from an aerial view at least.
These big old cottonwood trees. Huge.
If you guys have been watching other creators' content, listening to all of the stories that are coming out, there was supposedly a barbecue that occurred on the day that Dylan went missing. And Dawn and Jim alleged that they were having this barbecue during the rain. I guess it was apparently raining off and on, but James Brenner said that he went to Dawn's for the barbecue at 1 p.m. Dawn said that James came to the barbecue at 3 p.m. And according to the official Dylan Rounds timeline, his phone last pinged at 3:51 p.m. Am I the only one that finds it interesting that James is in jail and has been named an official suspect? And we have this ping from Dylan's phone heading towards the general area of Dawn's at 3:41 p.m. In my opinion, it could mean that either James is not the correct suspect or that the timelines both Dawn and Jim gave might be incorrect. If their timelines are incorrect, I mean, why would their timelines not add up? That's a little bit odd. Could it be something more devious? I'm not sure. Obviously, law enforcement knows more than we, the general public, know, and I'm not going to question them. I'm not going to disagree with them. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.